She was a familiar face, a model, a former reality show contestant, and a rising star on OnlyFans. Her name, Tamika Chesser. But on June 17, 2025, all that changed. News broke of a horrifying crime in Queensland, Australia. A man found brutally murdered, dismembered and partially burned, and at the center of it all was her. This wasn't just another headline. It was the kind of story that shakes something deeper in us. Because the face smiling in filtered selfies was now the same face behind a possible act of unspeakable violence. What happened that night? What snapped inside her, if anything at all? Was this a calculated decision or a psychological implosion? Tonight, we don't just tell the story, we question what lies beneath it. This is Criminal Psychology Unmasked, and today we ask, when validation becomes obsession and obsession becomes violence, where does the break begin? Before we dive deeper, check if you're subscribed to the channel. Here we explore, not excuse, because what you're about to see next is a timeline of descent, a chain of moments that slowly unraveled and ended in fire. June 17th, 2025, a quiet apartment complex in North Brisbane. The early hours of the morning are disrupted by smoke, a foul odor, and the kind of silence that feels too heavy. A neighbor calls emergency services. Something's not right, they say. What they don't know, can't know, is that behind one of those locked doors lies a scene almost beyond comprehension. Responders arrive expecting a domestic fire, but the reality is worse. Inside, they find the body of a man. No signs of life, no chance of revival. He's been dismembered, his remains partially burned, with items scattered around suggesting a desperate attempt to cover up what had just occurred. The woman inside the apartment is Tamika Chesser. Dressed in a state of disarray, she appears distant, erratic, unable or unwilling to make sense of what's happening. When police arrive, she doesn't flee. She doesn't speak clearly. She seems disconnected. Arrested on the spot, her booking photo would soon flood headlines, creating a disturbing contrast with her polished social media image. But what truly happened that night? Investigators begin reconstructing the hours and days that led to this point. The victim, believed to be her romantic partner, had reportedly been staying with Tamika for several days. Neighbors mention hearing yelling, furniture moving, something shattering. One described hearing Tamika sobbing through the walls. Then came the social media posts, clips where she laughed at nothing, whispered to the camera, cried in silence. Some were deleted quickly. Others remained, becoming digital footprints of a mind spiraling toward the edge. Inside the apartment, signs of struggle, broken objects, blood spatter, a kitchen knife. There were attempts to clean up, to erase, but nothing felt coldly planned. Everything about the scene screamed panic, emotion, collapse. Had the violence erupted suddenly, triggered by an argument? Or was this act the end of a slow, invisible descent that no one around her had fully seen? Tamika Chesser wasn't a household name, but she was everywhere. Instagram, TikTok, OnlyFans, reality TV. Her digital footprint was expansive, carefully curated to showcase beauty, confidence, and control. Yet the version of her that existed online didn't always align with what people saw in person. And over time, the cracks began to show. She had once appeared on a reality show known for its emotionally charged conflicts. Viewers remember her as bold, unpredictable, and polarizing. After the show ended, she turned toward adult content, a decision that brought both attention and criticism. On OnlyFans, she crafted a persona that thrived on fantasy, but fantasy by definition is not reality. People close to her, former friends, neighbors, even past partners, began to speak out. They described mood swings, sudden outbursts, episodes of isolation followed by waves of overexposure online. There were signs of deep emotional instability, but in a culture that often rewards extremes, her volatility was dismissed as performance, maybe even part of the brand. Behind the filtered images and curated captions, Tamika was reportedly battling internal chaos. Her posts oscillated between seductive and sorrowful, between empowered and desperate. Some described her as chasing attention at any cost. Others saw someone screaming silently from behind the screen. In one live video filmed weeks before the murder, she stares into the camera without speaking. For over 2 minutes, she just sits there, breathing heavily, eyes unfocused. It ends abruptly. No explanation. When you look at her content in retrospect, it doesn't read as provocative. It reads as fractured, and that fracture, the tension between the self she performed and the one she couldn't escape, might have been the silent force building behind the crime. By the time police began interviewing Tamika after her arrest, it became clear she was not in a stable mental state. Witnesses described her as incoherent, trembling, speaking in broken phrases. The question arose almost immediately: was this woman intoxicated, under the influence, or simply unraveling? Reports later revealed that Tamika had a documented history of erratic behavior, and those closest to her suspected substance abuse. Though toxicology reports are still pending, there were signs: insomnia, paranoia, and spiraling emotional outbursts. Some neighbors claimed to hear music blaring at all hours, followed by long stretches of eerie silence. Others described seeing her walking barefoot through the parking lot, mumbling to herself. This wasn't just instability, it was fragmentation, a mind slowly separating from the boundaries of reality. Psychologists point to a dangerous feedback loop, one where impulsivity, validation-seeking, and chemical dependency feed into each other. When you are constantly projecting a fantasy self, but privately spiraling, the pressure becomes unbearable. Tamika's behavior in the days leading up to the crime reflected that split. One day, she posted flirtatious selfies with captions about healing and energy. The next, she uploaded cryptic messages that read like distress calls. In one now-deleted video, she appeared gaunt, her eyes darting as if seeing something no one else could. She whispered, "He's watching me," then quickly shut off the camera. No one knows who he was. If substances were involved, they may have acted as both catalyst and escape, fueling delusions while temporarily numbing the very pain that drove her closer to the edge. But even without drugs, the behavioral patterns alone suggest a breakdown. Tamika was no longer grounded. Her perception of the world and of herself was collapsing in on itself. And in that implosion, something irreversible may have snapped. In the chaos of headlines, mugshots, and social media theories, one figure often fades into the background: the man who died, the victim, a life erased not just by violence, but by narrative omission. His name, at the time of reporting, had not been officially released. But neighbors and acquaintances knew him. They saw him with Tamika, laughing one day, arguing the next. What was their relationship really? Reports suggest he was a romantic partner, possibly on and off. Some described him as quiet, polite. Others hinted at volatility. Their bond, it seems, was unstable, marked by intensity, control, and emotional extremes. But regardless of the dynamic, the end was the same: brutal, irreversible. He died in a way no one should die. And yet, as the world dissected Tamika's mental state, her persona, her descent, he became a background figure, a blurry shape in the shadows of her unraveling. This is not uncommon in cases involving female perpetrators. The narrative often tilts toward the woman, sensationalizing her beauty, her breakdown, her duality. Meanwhile, the victim becomes a footnote, a statistic, a body in a room. But he was not a symbol. He was a person, with a life, a past, a family. We don't yet know what happened in their final confrontation, whether he was threatening or trying to leave, or simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. We may never fully know. But what we do know is this: someone's son, someone's friend, someone's presence was extinguished in a moment of terror. And as we try to understand the psychology behind this act, we cannot forget the person who paid the ultimate price: As news of the crime spread, something disturbingly familiar happened. The focus shifted, not to the victim, not even to the violence, but to her looks, her past, her content. Tamika Chesser became a spectacle. And the internet did what it often does. It divided. Some rushed to condemn her, labeling her a monster, a manipulator, a femme fatale. Others defended her, citing trauma, mental illness, the pressure of online life. Comments flooded every post she had ever made. Her photos, once curated for fantasy, now circulated as evidence of danger. Her body became an object of contradiction, sexualized, criminalized, pitied. A new narrative emerged, that she had snapped, that beauty hides madness, that the world broke her. But in all of this, the deeper psychological questions got lost. Instead of asking why something fractured, people asked how someone like her could do this. And beneath it all lurked a darker instinct, voyeurism. The pleasure of watching a beautiful woman fall, the obsession with her downfall. Her mugshot trended, old videos resurfaced, view counts exploded. Was it empathy or entertainment? We live in a world where pain is content and breakdowns go viral, where someone's psychological collapse becomes a thread to be debated in real time. But what happens when that voyeurism blinds us to truth? Tamika's case should have been a national reckoning on mental health, online pressure, and identity fragmentation. Instead, it became a prism, refracting her into whatever image people needed: victim, villain, object, fantasy. And that may be the most disturbing layer of all. When we hear about a case like this, it's tempting to simplify it, to label, to close it up in a box marked crazy, evil, or broken. But nothing about this story is simple. Tamika Chesser's descent is not just a story of a woman who lost control. It's a reflection of a world where identity is a performance, and where performance can become a prison. She lived online, not just as a presence, but as a product. Carefully edited, relentlessly exposed, always consumed. But who was she when the camera turned off? Her breakdown didn't come out of nowhere. It was gradual, layered. 1,000 tiny ruptures that no one saw, or that everyone saw but ignored, because she made it look beautiful, because she made it entertaining. And that's what makes this so disturbing. Not just the act, but how closely it mirrors the fractures we all carry, the cracks we paper over with filters, smiles, and distraction. How many people are breaking in silence right now, beneath layers of image and expectation? We look at Tamika and wonder, how could she do this? But maybe the better question is, what was done to her? And who benefits from a world where validation becomes currency and collapse becomes content? We must sit with the discomfort of not knowing, of acknowledging that some minds don't simply snap, they erode, slowly, quietly, until something inside gives way. We don't excuse the violence, we don't justify the horror. A man died, brutally, and nothing can make that right. But if we want to understand, truly understand, we must be willing to look past the headlines and into the dark places where identity fractures, where need becomes obsession, where performance becomes pain. Because this wasn't just about one woman. This was about the world that watched, that followed, that clicked, that liked, and then turned away, too late. So, we ask, what truly separates a moment of despair from an irreversible act? Is it awareness, morality, or just a final moment with no one watching? How close are ordinary minds to extraordinary darkness? And would we even recognize the fracture before it breaks? Does understanding their mind bring us closer to prevention, or only deeper into the mystery? I would love to hear your view in the comments. Your support allows us to keep focusing on understanding, not sensationalizing. If this matters to you, consider leaving a like. And if you believe that questioning, not judging, is the path to insight, subscribe to Criminal Psychology Unmasked and come deeper into the work we do here. This story is over, for now, but the questions remain. And in our next episode, we'll explore another disturbing case, one that forces us to rethink everything we assume about impulse control and the fragile walls that separate sanity from collapse. Until then, stay observant, stay human, and above all, stay questioning.